the 15 months away from my family, worst 15 months of my life. After every fire, there's always a new shoot. So you can burn down a field and stuff will grow back. You've got to be stubborn on what your vision is. Right? But what I've learned as I've gone along this process, you've got to be flexible on the details. Read any MBA book you want. You've still got to find a way. Anything is possible. You can achieve anything you want to achieve. And the tiniest of seeds can grow into something that could eventually become a global or a household renowned product. You just got to get off your ass and make it happen.
Hello, John Stapleton here again, and welcome to my podcast, Cutting to the Fog. And this is where we interview and talk to a seasoned entrepreneur about their entrepreneurial journey. Brett, welcome to my podcast. Tell me, in your words, how have you cut through the fog?
Thank you, John. Very kind of you to invite me here today. It's been a long journey. My journey started back in South Africa when I was playing cricket, trying to be a professional cricketer or trying to play at the highest level possible. And I found as a player, I found a gap in the market because I really struggled with my balance being a left-handed batsman at that particular time. And one of the things that I found we never had was we never had the tools to teach us how we needed to train balance.
Right.
So that was pretty much the start of me coming up with these inventions around balance, alignment, and weight transfer in a cricket or a golf specific product.
What age were you at this stage? This was like you were a teenager still, or
it was early. It was actually when I was 20. 21.
Okay.
And I'll never forget it because I was actually playing cricket in England. And everyone will talk about balance, but how do you actually train it? And so for me, it got my mind thinking, like, how do you develop something that can actually, you can take into the nets, you can use without having to, and get instant feedback.
Okay.
Because that's what you're looking for. It's like, as a player, you're looking for instant feedback. As a coach can tell you something, but can you feel what you're actually doing?
Okay.
And that was really the start of me sort of like trying to play around with building my own little invention. And when I went back to South Africa, I thought, no, this would be quite a good idea. Never acted on it for about another 10 years.
Okay. You played cricket you concentrated on playing cricket professionally, right?
Well, I wouldn't say professionally, it was semi-professionally,
right.
You know, but certainly, you know, like from my side of things, it was like, I'm really glad that I did play the standard of cricket, that I did, because I think like part of that whole journey really, in essence, gave me the tools to deal with a lot of failures, a lot of disappointments. Sure. But it also, on the other side of it, gave me a massive opportunity to build a fantastic network.
Sure.
And really, if I think about it there, would I change any of the failures or anything? No. I think that those failures, they're the things that sort of mold you as a player, as a not just as a player, but as a person, as an entrepreneur. It gives you that I suppose resistance, determination, resilience, grit. You know, initially when I first started playing, I was an opening batter, right?
Okay.
So you know you're always on a hiding to nothing. You know, the ball's new, it's going fast. Guys are trying to knock your head off.
It favors the bowler, in effect, right? Is that what you're saying? It's like you're always kind of, you know...
You're always in the back of your mind.
You're a hero, but nobody expects you to do so well.
I think you, in the back of your mind, you're always worried about failure. Okay. Fear of failure. What happens if I fail today? You know, and it's the same for life and business, right?
Sure, exactly.
What happens, like it never goes away, no matter how successful you are.
Sure.
Two
observations I've got there. One is a lot of people come into the food industry, for example, or any industry with an idea that they've got from life. They kind of think, this doesn't exist. This is something that has affected me personally. And you know what? I'm going to give up my day job and I'm going to develop a business. I'm going to make this thing that doesn't exist. I'm really frustrated it doesn't exist, or this service, whatever. Right? So you recognize this balance mechanism didn't exist, you thought that's something that I can actually bring to the industry and will benefit the industry. So you saw a business opportunity out of your own personal frustration, number one. And the second thing is how sport has prepared you for life as a business person and the ups and downs and dealing with adversity at a very early stage. You know, you do sport as a kid or as a teenager, whatever it is. So you learn these lessons at an early stage, and it's always better to learn them at an early stage. Maybe we pick up those 2 points. First of all, the point about, entrepreneurship is all about recognizing opportunity and a need in the marketplace. Yours came from a personal frustration that you or personal opportunity you saw to train balance, or to find a way to be more effective at training balance. Tell me more about that opportunity and how you saw it and how you identified it.
Yeah, initially you're right. It was all about training balance,
right?
Training balance and alignment. And I knew nothing about business, zero.
Mm-hmm.
I managed to find a industrial design engineer.
Wow.
In South Africa. And really, I would go into his studio and be blown away by what design could do and what products look like, why people buy them, how they sell, how it needs to look sharp, how the branding needs to connect to the consumer, all sorts of stuff like that. I still probably didn't know what I was doing at the stage,
sure,
but it looked amazing, and it was really difficult because I think in the early stage, you would go back and you would tell your dad or your friends, well, I'm going to start this business and we're going to design this product and we're going to sell it in the market and this is what we're going to do. And really at that stage, I don't really think I had a business plan as such, but it was the excitement of trying to deliver something unique, trying to solve a problem for people. And I was obsessed with it.
Of course.
Right. So I just think that when we got to that point of actually finding the first bit of cash to actually then go through the injection molding and the tooling process and the design process and getting an endorsement and getting our first players to use it and then moving it around and going to India and getting Sachin Tendulkar to use it.
Wow.
And things like that. It shows you that, anything is possible.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing's not possible. It doesn't matter that it's not hard. Anything is possible. You can achieve anything you want to achieve. And the tiniest of seeds can grow into something that could eventually become a global or a household renowned product.
Right. And now that's quite inspiring, because a lot of young entrepreneurs or people who say they want to set up a business but don't know what the product's going to be, I don't really know, or they get frustrated that this doesn't exist, so that'll be, okay, it's my hobby, but can I really turn this into a business? It's a lot of kind of trying to get your arms around how do I actually get this off the ground as a real business opportunity? How do I convert my idea, my crazy idea? There's a need in the market. There's an insight here. This is something that people will respond to, will buy, or will use. How do I turn that into a real product that you can bring to market? There's a lot involved in that, and that's what you did. Tell me more about that, because that's a real realization that a lot of entrepreneurs and people watching this podcast perhaps will think, I've got a burning ambition to do something, but I don't quite know what, or I have an idea, but I don't know how to realize it. Tell me how that took effect for you and what you did about implementing all those things from potential to evidence.
I think unless you test a product in the marketplace, you're not going to know if it works or not. And you can have the best scenario on paper, but until you actually take it out and someone uses it or someone experiences your product, you're never going to get the right answer, or your assumptions are going to be slightly different. And I think, like for me, I think you've got to be stubborn on what your vision is.
Yeah.
Right. But what I've learned as I've gone along this process, you've got to be flexible on the details.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, when we first came up with Zwingo, I didn't know any of that stuff. It was just through sheer force. I don't know whether it was bravery. I don't know whether it was stupidity. But I had the self-belief that I could get people to use it. And I had no problem in looking foolish in front of people.
Yeah.
Because that's the biggest thing. People will go into a situation and they'll rather be worried about looking foolish, or there's no such thing as the right or wrong answer. There's no proven formula. It's what you decide as an entrepreneur. Like obviously the market's going to tell you whether the product works or not, right? But I think if you follow the process of, from our side, creating a really good product that solves a problem, you market it the right way, you connect to the consumer. There's no reason why the product shouldn't be successful. I will say this though, I think as I went along, there was a light bulb moment in this journey where, when you're a bit younger, you think, oh, I'm going to develop this product, I'm going to take it to market, I'm going to make millions.
Sure.
That doesn't happen, right? So there's no magic formula for that happening. And I think as you go along, you get drawn into other companies or other products where they've either sold something in retail or they sold it in e-commerce. And then you start looking at actually how they've sold it. Where have they sold it? Have they used influencers? Have they used athletes? Do they spend money on platforms like Meta and Google? How do they drive engagement? And those were really the big things for me. And the reality is you've got to test what you're doing,
right? But
you could also just effectively just throw money into space.
So how do you get to sell this then? Were you selling it to clubs or selling it to individuals, or are you getting testimonials from people saying this is a really cool thing, this really helps me, adds 2%, 5% to my game? How did all that work?
We got a testimonial from the MCC initially when I first raised the cash, brought the product to the UK. I've actually got quite a funny story about that.
Go right ahead. Love to hear that.
So when I was in South Africa, I decided that we were going to try and move this, not move the company, but try and sell this product abroad.
Right.
And came to the UK, got a meeting with the MCC in the UK, got a meeting with the ECB, and from then I was just like, well, I was actually blown away by, I hadn't been to the UK for a while, by about how big the opportunity was in the UK versus outside of South Africa. Went back to South Africa, and within 4 weeks, I just decided I was going to come to the UK. I was going to go and sell this. And at this time, I was still thinking of taking a big order back to South Africa. So it wasn't about setting up a company. I literally had no plan. I got on a plane. When I was on the plane, I had a look, sort of saw which counties were playing at what ground, turned right out of Heathrow, went through to Essex, stood outside on a cold April's morning. Some young guy landed up using the product, and that was literally how we raised investment on the back of that. It was, and they said, well, we don't want the company to be in South Africa. We want you to move it here and to the UK. And that's what really started the journey. So I think all of this stuff, I think that's what makes entrepreneurship great.
Sure. You have that breakthrough. You suddenly see how people can use your product and you feel like, hey.
Yeah, but you've also, like, without sounding crass or anything like that, you've just got to get off your ass and make it happen. Mm-hmm. So you just got to find a way. Mm-hmm. So I think for me, I found a way. Like, it doesn't matter. You can read any MBA book you want. You've still got to find a way, and it depends on you.
Sure.
It's got this little mirror that's by the side of my bed. Got it as a 21-year-old, and every morning when I woke up, little cheap thing like that, in the mirror, in the writing on the mirror, it says, "It depends on you."
I love it. Absolutely. So, I call that agency. I think that's such an essential part of entrepreneurship. Everybody has their own vision of entrepreneurship. And I guess mine is like agency and resilience and not taking over an answer. But the agency bit means that a lot of this stuff exists in theory and really interesting, really insightful. It's great. But actually, none of it matters until do something about it. And it's really obvious, but it's so important in entrepreneurship because you get people queuing up around the block telling you you're crazy or you're wrong or it won't work. And you just got to prove one step at a time that they're wrong. Not supposed to have to prove they're wrong, but you're right. And also take account of the bits where you are wrong and pivot and change and modify. And it's so rewarding to have somebody confirm you're right all along, and using it, and then finding ways to use it, your product or service, whatever it is, in ways that you hadn't thought. Yeah, wow, this could go in lots of different directions. That's so motivating. It's so empowering. But it only comes after you do something to start with. Only comes after your agency. Tell me more about this agency. So you went to Essex Cricket Club and got a little bit of traction there. Somebody used it, and then so how did how did it grow from there?
Yeah, so that was in the April. By the November of 2017, set up a company in the UK.
Right.
Raised the capital, which was, from my side, was probably the first time I'd raised capital was in South Africa, but it wasn't the same type of money that was raised here. And
you raise a lot more here, is that what you're saying, or for different purposes?
It's different stages. The first stage was for injection molds and tooling and some patents, trademarks, stuff like that. But the second part of it, the reason why that was important, was when we sold in the intellectual property, we created a value to it.
Sure.
So that sits on your balance sheet. It makes the investment look more attractive. Mm-hmm. It makes you look like you're organized. And really, that was the start of Zwingo being born, I'd just say to the UK, but globally, really, because South Africa, as much as the product was used at Cricket South Africa and the rest of it, this was really the springboard for it to go.
That's really interesting. I'd love to dig into that and talk a bit more about that. So the early stage in South Africa was all about prototypes and converting what was inside your head into something in reality you could demonstrate to people and generate some traction. In the UK, then, you were talking about scaling your business, maybe even on a global scale, right? So you had to prove a lot of different proof points or points that you had to actually demonstrate didn't just exist in theory, actually existed in practice. And this is very interesting for entrepreneurs, I think, because they raise a little bit of money to get started, and then they had to think, okay, how do I scale this? So that's a scary place to be, though. You're not going to go big with this, right? You got a lot more to lose, yeah? You got a lot more to gain as well. Tell me more about that. Raising the money in the UK, what was the single biggest thing you have to get right to make that a success?
Like I said, you've got to be stubborn on your vision. You also have to get, and this is one of the things that go, not all investors are the same. So you've got to get an investor that's interested in what you're doing. Mm-hmm. If you don't, there's going to be no real value that's added to your company. Mm-hmm. So, entrepreneurs need help. Founders need help. They don't know everything. And certainly in terms of raising cash, I would think that initially when you're in that journey of just starting to scale up your business, you definitely need people in your corner that's going to fight your fight. Mm-hmm. Everyone's going to have an opinion. Everyone's going to say, but you should have done this, or this should have been different, or you didn't think of that, or why didn't? And so you've got to take on board what they say, but also at the same time, you've got to it's got to be water off a duck's back in some circumstances. It's never easy. You need your investors to come on board that are going to believe and help you. You're then going to need your early adopters. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how, but there needs to be an element of timing and luck with stuff. And like, I don't know whether it's like you get prepared that you make your own luck. I don't know how it happens. I don't know whether it's that you blind to it, that you don't see the challenges. I mean, we touched on it earlier on. Effectively, you've just got to find that way.
I've thought about this before. I think it's a question of making judgments. It's like, I've heard say, how do I know who the best person to get advice from is? And I said, well, lots of people can give you advice, but at the end of the day, all the advice you get, you've got to make a judgment as whether you take that advice or not. There's no point in saying I was given the wrong advice. Presumably, they gave it to you in good faith, and you took it. But it's your fault it was wrong advice because you took it. Yeah. That just sounds a bit harsh. But how are you meant to know? But that's the judgment you have to make. You can seek advice and listen to advice and then say, you don't get it, or it's not for me, or that bit I'll do, but this bit I won't, and have reasons for it. But it's down to you in the end. You have to make that judgment. Yeah. And you can be given bad advice, but the only person that's at fault here is you for taking the bad advice. And that's what it comes down to in the end. And okay, you can separate that out with experience, But in the early days, you've got very little experience. How do you make those judgments? And what does it come down to say, like you said before, you got to be stubborn about your vision, but you got to be open to the details and listen to the market. The same is true, open to shareholders, what they think, open to people giving you advice. What advice do you take? What advice do you leave?
I was very fortunate. So when we moved over to the UK, my father-in-law was an ex-partner at Deloitte.
Okay.
In audit, and their only daughter was going to have their first grandchildren,
Right.
And so they moved to the UK with us. And so while I was busy running the company, I'd say for the best part of 4 or 5 years, I would get to go to the pub with him, and we would talk, and I would listen because I'd ask questions, and not necessarily remember that an auditor sits on the other side of what happens to the entrepreneurial side.
Sure.
But you get brilliant advice, brilliant guidance. And I think he was the person who got me to really think in systems, running a proper board meeting,
Okay.
running a proper shareholders meeting, collecting minutes of the meeting, doing things like don't do things half-hearted.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Do things properly.
Sure.
And that was really the step that was like the professionalism outside of that, saying, like I'll say, like a lot of people can make money in this world, and they have made a lot of money. But I think if you're going to want to scale your company, the people that are involved with you literally need to you need to document everything. You need to have a process for everything. There needs to be things need to be measurable in the company. Like, if a customer's going to phone you and ask you for when the return is, get on the phone them. There KPIs in the company that are going to determine whether your company becomes successful or not.
Sure. And it's really a question of making sure it's all about adding value, I think, is what you're saying there. You're making sure you introduce new procedures and concepts and steady things down so you can build for the future. So you have a scalable business. And getting advice and getting value added at the right time. You can very easily submerged in detail and lose sight of the longer game, right? You're saying avoid that, but making sure also that you have a scalable business that can grow, and then you need to bring in new people, new systems, new procedures, and you're never quite sure if it's the right decision you're making at the time. Again, it's judgment on all these issues. How do you know that? Getting back to that question, how do you know that? Or you just have to make decisions and get on with it and see how they work out?
I think one of the biggest things that I've learned in this whole process is that if I was going to sell my company one day, am I selling Brett Hillary or am I selling the company?
Sure. Yeah.
And so that's the difference. Because if you're selling Brett Hillary, you're selling a self-employed.
You're going to be tied to that role all your life, aren't you?
Correct.
Yeah.
But if you're selling a company that's got the right processes and systems and distribution, and you know what that company does, and brand, you're going to have a set of rules and KPIs that whoever lands up acquiring the company one day will just go on without there being any disruption. Not that there's not going to be disruption, but to the consumer.
But you're not critical to dealing with the disruption. The product, the business can deal with the disruption.
Yeah, I think.
Right?
I think so.
Okay, great way of putting it. Good. So let me talk about the business now then, moved on, because you've pivoted the business from a physical mobility or balance type of product to an AI authentication product, or tell me more about what it is now and how that has moved through different iterations.
Yeah, well, not AI authentication necessarily.
Okay.
But I would say a data infrastructure, fan identity, and visual intelligence company.
Right.
So I became obsessed with being able to understand our customer, to really scale. And I'll say, so when we were using the cricket balance board, we then moved into the apparel side of things, right? Now, how do you compete in an apparel market where you've got the likes of the big guys?
The large brands, yeah.
How do you do that?
Okay.
So you've got to solve a proper problem for them. They've got to connect to your brand somehow. How are they going to connect to your brand? Is it going to be through influencers? Is it going to be through price? Because if you're going to compete through price, That's a tough sell.
They've got volume. They'll always win on
Right.
price.
Yeah. Right. So like, how do you differentiate yourself from all of those competitors? And I was like, the brand needs to do something. There needs to be something unique. And I'd made mistakes, right? So I'd made mistakes spending money in Meta and spending money on Google. You know, your go-to-market strategy. Sometimes it doesn't work, and you've got to be flexible. And you're like, well, how do I get more salespeople? Do I have to sell more? Do I have to go and do this? Do I have to? You like, and for me, really, I was like, geez, okay. So I know that, for example, if you use, let's just say, MasterCard or Visa, and you go purchase something, and at the end, MasterCard or Visa, at the end of the purchase, you tap your card and then you pay for the transaction and off you go. They don't understand their customer. They just know the end journey, the end point. So for me, it was like, okay, well, how do we actually understand what the consumer and our customer is doing? And so really what I started doing was saying, there's nothing that competes offline. So in other words, if you're going along and you say, those are really cool shoes, where'd you get them, what you do? We've created the visual intelligence where all you need to do is just scan them.
Okay.
Scan them, and up it pops offline.
Now, where did that insight, where did that come from? From, sort of Twingo to the visual intelligence concept is quite a pivot. Obviously, something happened, a light bulb moment or a realization that this is what a business could be formed from.
Yeah, I'm just obsessed with trying to build a big company.
Okay.
So for me,
that does speak of scale for sure.
Yeah,
So
I'm obsessed with trying to do that. So like for me, it's kind of like, okay, what are we going to do this time? We're going to do it properly. Like let's put something in that no one's seen before. Again, same formula. Like, geez, how am I going to build a visual intelligence product? I don't sit there and code, right? Okay. But I'm good with partnerships. I'm good with being able to find people. How do we do it? Go find the best person possible to build this. The best person that's available in computer vision. So all of a sudden you're stacking up, instead of industrial design engineers, you're stacking up different types of engineers to build a product that you could take to market and see what the market thinks.
Now, okay, so let me just put my head in the head of people listening to this. We're thinking, because I can think some people will go, well, hang on a second, you're a cricket guy and you had this product. You're doing my head in now. Now you're talking about something completely different, and you are clearly, but that's okay. So your message is that's okay because you've realised, or you've learned, or you've noticed, or you've uncovered an opportunity. You can be true to your vision for sure. And Twingo is a balance education or balance training module. It's a physical product, right? It's only by trying to sell that and come up against resistances and finding inadequacy in the system to sell it that you realise that's great, but let's look at the system and let's pivot. It's actually more than a pivot. It's a completely separate business. It's evolved into something entirely different. But that's okay, is your point. It's not being distracted by shiny new objects. And that's really important because a lot of time, I say it myself, a lot of time we tell entrepreneurs to stick to the knitting, focus on what you're doing, your original plan, develop it. And that's true, of course. Otherwise, you're trying to do all things all at once, and you end up, being a busy fool, and you end up not getting anywhere. No. But the message you're giving here is that if you get distracted by something, and that's a realization. It's an opportunity here. And it's a completely different business than what you set out to do before. What's wrong with that?
Look, I think my circumstance and situation is slightly different. I had a bit of a situation where I had some procedural failure and I was separated from my family for 15 months.
Procedural failure. I love the sound of that. What does that mean? The detail is irrelevant, but what does it mean in terms of procedural failure? How would you explain that?
Yeah, I was unable to live and work in the UK at the time.
Oh, that's quite a hindrance. Okay.
So, and given that I'd lived here for 7 years,
wow, yeah,
I can't really discuss too much what's going on with that.
Sure.
But
But that's a hindrance that on top of everything else, you're trying to run a business. That's quite a lot.
yeah, it caused huge problems.
Right.
And not just founder problems or business problems. There's the human cost and the personal stuff that goes on behind it. So that was.
And by the way, I think people will resonate with this because it's like, oh yeah, well, everybody's detail is different, of course, right? But I'm trying to do stuff, and everybody's telling me I'm crazy. I'm trying to get on with it anyway. I'm trying to focus. In the meantime, I've got a family, or I've just got personal circumstances that often can get in the way. That's what you're saying. This really got in the way for you.
Yeah, was really, really tough.
Sure.
You just, if I'm honest with you, I sat in a room, locked up in a room for 18 hours a day. 10,000 kilometers away from my family. And if I talk about it from a founder's perspective, I love it because it gave me new purpose and belief, and like, I'm going to put my foot on your throat and go even harder. And like, I used that, I suppose, resilience and grit and everything to forge a way to try and, when I got back here, to try and build something better, bigger, faster, more durable, all of that type of stuff. But from a human cost point of view, very difficult. I'll say the one thing though, I mean, the 15 months away from my family, worst 15 months of my life ever. Worked 18 hours a day. Not healthy. Right? Sat there learning everything around law. I could probably give myself a law degree now, even though I don't have the papers to prove it. Everything around law, and just researching competitors, I mean, if I think back now, it just wasn't a healthy situation, but look what it's doing now. Like that, like under the most extreme circumstance, I've managed to turn around and say, this is what we're busy building. This is what we're doing. And, I like, has it made me a better entrepreneur? 100%.
In that you'd say, that's not healthy, I shouldn't do that, I wouldn't recommend that. But now that I've done it, I can put it to great use.
I can put it to great use now that I've done it.
Yeah.
I think you need to be a different type of person or character or like suffering to actually go through what I went through.
Sure.
People are going to judge you. They're not going to understand your story.
Sure.
And then you do a full circle and you got to go back and you got to reinvent yourself. And after every fire, there's always a new shoot.
After every fire, there's a new shoot.
After every fire, there's always a new shoot. So you can burn down a field, and stuff will grow back.
I like that. And what we're talking about here is Brett, I hear a lot of it's resilience, right? It's like there's more than that, right? But there's a resilience at the core. It's like I'm not going to take no for an answer. I'm getting knocked down, but I'm getting it right back up and get it back in the saddle. I'm going to drive forward. I have a vision which I'm not going to let go of, despite all the circumstances getting in my way. I'm tenacious about this. A lot of people would give up and say, "This job is not cut out for this. I'm going to go and get a job." Or this is too difficult. I've got to find a way to deal with this head on in terms of my personal life or whatever, or other extra circumstances, and my business is going to go on hold, and actually you never get back to it because you go down a different road. There's risk of that, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you chose a different path, right? That's resilience as far as I'm concerned. What's that due to? Is that due to your sports experience or something else?
I think I've always had resilience from sport, like even mountain biking, or going to gym, or, the harder it got for me, the better it got for me. You can't do great things or achieve great things without it being difficult. So I'll give you an example. Do a mountain bike race. Could be 70 mile long. 70 miles in 40-degree heat with cramp and the rest of it. You feel like you've earned your medal at the end. No matter where you've come at the race, when you finish that line, you survived. So you get taught resilience. And I think for me personally, in that moment, I think what really came to the to the forefront was I just needed to find a way to get back to my family.
Mm-hmm.
And to let everyone know that I am the person I said I was. And you can speak words, and words mean nothing, but if you actually demonstrate and do, that's the evidence. You're going back to your first question that you said around evidence. And so for me, I would say this. Sitting in that room wasn't healthy. Okay? Definitely. You need to be out exercising, doing stuff. But it gave me a purpose that I had nothing else to think about other than the outcome. And if I had had time to point fingers and blame, I think the result would have been very different.
Mm-hmm.
I still think I would have been in South Africa sitting back there now.
You'd be still there today?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so you come out the other side of the fire and, here you are.
What would your kind of message be to young entrepreneurs that are starting out with a lot of enthusiasm and have see an opportunity? What would you say to them in terms of, turning that potential into evidence? What do they need to do, if there's one thing?
I think just start. Starting would be a good point. Taking your first step will be a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's often the scariest thing to do, is to take that first step. Because if you don't start, you don't know what the plan's going to be, or you're not going to figure out what the plan's going to be. So you have to start.
Okay. And
then I would say, hinging on the back of what you had said, and this is not to sound wishy-washy or anything like that, but you've got to build the right circle around you and the right culture and environment to allow you to make mistakes, to allow you to try new things, to allow you to go after what you want to do. Because if you don't have that, and you've got someone that says, I'll give you, my mother's passed away, so she's not here, but she's probably going to come haunt me after this. But the one thing that really annoyed me about my mother was told me, you can't do that. No, you can't do it. And I was like, of course you can. What rules are those? She goes, that's the way it works. Mm. And I think there's got to be an sort of like an attitude that you definitely can do that. And like I said, I was probably blind to a lot of the things, but that's part of the journey, and it's part of the character building and the resilience. And so I would say certainly just surround yourself with people that are rooting for you, that will embrace what you're doing. The other thing that I would say to entrepreneurs is don't expect them to know everything that you're thinking in your mind, because they won't. Sure. People don't understand. They'll go, oh, you've got a nice company, you're starting that. Rather have those people there, because the people that are around you go, oh, it's never going to work. Mm-hmm. They're never going to be the ones that are going to build anything anyway. So their opinion's irrelevant. Sure. Right. Sure. So I think you'll find out very quickly who your friends are. Sure. Very quickly, and you'll find out who's actually in your corner when things do get tough, because they will get tough at some point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I want to come back to finally to one particular point, which was the whole issue about sport and how the lessons of sport from a young age. You learn a lot of realism in terms of sport. You're knocked back. You're trading. You can apply yourself. You win, which is fantastic, elation. You lose. You think, oh, that's unfair, and then you realize that winning and losing is all part of it. And you have to apply yourself even more. And some of it is luck, and some of it is people you know. But sport tells you so much at a young early stage when you're in your formative years. I used to be a sports person when I was younger too, and I've learned this from experience. So I always say I learned much more about business when I was a kid, when I was doing sports and other experiences than I did in business. I think people make the mistake sometimes. The lessons they learn is relevant for business, or you get from business. You do, but you get it from a lot earlier too if you were to wake up to that fact. So tell me more about, just while we end on this, you're a sports person through and through, but what particularly do you think was the benefit of your sporting experience, your cricket experience, not just from your cricket business or your cricket related business, etc., but generally speaking, your approach to life in a business environment, your approach to dealing with resilience in your personal life, all that stuff that you have had to deal with from 18 onwards, let's say. Where did the benefits come from particularly from your sporting background?
I think sport, if you're gonna base sport just on high performance, I think you're gonna fail. You've got to build young men, young women, in the right environment and right culture. And if you've got the right environment and right culture, certainly, because you might find someone, you might find someone who's not in the right environment and the right culture, and they might be a fantastic athlete, but because they haven't had access to sitting, having a conversation, listening to stories, talking about failures with other sporting athletes and the rest of it, it makes, for them, it becomes a bigger barrier for them to really learn and to experience things slightly differently. So for me, playing sports, I was very lucky from a young age. I think I played my first Premier League cricket match when I was probably 15. 8 or 9 first-class cricket players playing in a Premier League side when I was 15, right? Just listening to how they went about it, not even just listening, watching. Because half the time you listen, but if you actually watch behavior, how people go about their business, what they do, it's big signals. There's and that's why for me also trying to be a good role model to my kids is not about telling them you must do this, you must do that. It's about leading. And so sports certainly has the ability to mold individuals and galvanize someone to become something special, or not even special. You don't have to be special. You just have to be. I think you just have to be engaged. I mean, think about the office. Think about an office. An office. How many people are inside an office in a medium enterprise?
Let's say 50.
You could be 50 people.
Right.
You've got to deal with 50 personalities.
Yeah.
How do you deal with 50 personalities? It's not just about brains, it's about emotional intelligence. So sport allows you to read people, to read environments. And I think it doesn't mean because you haven't played sport that you're not going to become successful. I just think that if, in my personal experience, it has helped me because it's helped me to read the change room, the environments, the timing, the moment. Is it now? Is it in that person's eyes? Are we doing that?
Sure.
And I'll just know. When I finished playing cricket, I was mountain biking, and you could be riding through 40-degree heat up a 2,000-meter climb, but you can just read body language. I can look at my partner or my brother and know that they're with me on this, and it's just one look, and that's it. You got, and I suppose that's the same for business.
Sure.
I've certainly surrounded myself now, definitely, with people that have that in their eye, where you don't have to say much to them. They just know. They know they're on the same wavelength as you. The body language is there. You can feel it. It's intuition. It's experience.
But you know it too. You know that they've been
Yes.
there. In some version, it might be a different version too, but in terms of application, resilience, dealing with something, challenge, I'm going to deliver this to myself, to whoever it is, so you can rely on them. And they're relying on you, and that's great to recognize that. The thing one of the many things, I thought sport was wonderful when I was growing up. One of the things I realized was, in my day in the 80s, in track and field, which is what I did, the big names were Steve Obed, Steve Cram, Sebastian Coe, middle distance UK athletes, and I met Sebastian Coe's coach, and he was just telling me stories about Sebastian Coe. I was like, what? He just normal stuff, and he doubted himself. But this is like a world-renowned athlete, Olympic champion, world records, and you kind of, he is. very talented, trained a hell of a lot, but he was just like you and me, starting out, certainly, with self-doubts and can I do it, or could I do it, not good enough, all. I think, wow, to realise that because of course we put these people on pedestals, probably quite rightly, but then we think they were always on the pedestal. Well, they were not. They were a kid once. They came from somewhere, trying stuff out, wishing, hoping, dreaming that they could do stuff. And then with all the benefits and the strength of the right people and a bit of luck maybe, but application really, they began to succeed and work. And now look at them now. And it's like to realize that, wow, if they could do it, why can't I do it? That is hugely inspiring. And just to realize that they're normal human beings. Okay, well, they're not really, because they were able to do abnormal things. But really, they were normal human beings. And there's kids from school like I was who were just giving it a go. And a realization that, wow, if that's what can happen, that's just the art of the possible. There's a little bit of insight into, I've met somebody who knows somebody. That's all it was.
That's correct, yeah.
But it was hugely inspiring to say, oh, wow, well, then I can do my version of that type of thing, and you kick on from there. And that is not just a sporting lesson, but it's a business lesson as well. And if you can carry that through, the issues are different, challenges are different, but the mindset is the same. Would you agree with that?
Definitely.
Yeah?
Yeah. 100%. You often find the kids that are on pedestals are not the ones that actually land up making it.
Mm-hmm.
You might get someone that's exceptional, but you find that the kids that have gone through a bit of resilience and are coachable,
mm-hmm.
and it can listen and have respect and do all those are the people that land up becoming, because they learn all those soft skills, to land up kicking forward. So I definitely do agree with you. And I think you need to be humble. You need to be open to wanting to do it. Again, it goes back to, your environment. How were you brought up?
Sure.
All of those types of things like that. What's your circumstance? What's your driver? We can go on for hours about talking about that type of stuff. But yeah, I think certainly the guys in business. I mean, there's a lot of very clever academics that land up writing published papers and doing all sorts of big banking jobs and whatever else. But the guys that are entrepreneurs are the guys that maybe are not those people. Maybe they someone that has a little bit of rubber on the tarmac from all sorts of different sort of angles.
It's what you said earlier. It's getting started. It's agency. Yeah.
You've just got to get started.
Good stuff. We have covered a multitude. Thank you so much, Brett Hillary, for coming in and sharing your entrepreneurial story with us and helping us to cut through the fog. Great to meet you. Great to talk to you.
Thank you.